I spent the best 10 years of my life in Turkey. Today I'll tell you a wonderful part of the life of Pope John XXIII, known as the Good Pope or the Turkish Pope. Turkish Pope because he spent 10 years in Istanbul, and it was a fundamental experience that subsequently had an impact on his papal decisions and behavior as well. What Pope Roncalli wrote about his life in Turkey that we read from his diary, yes, he kept a diary. He wrote one page for each day, and so he left us a documentation referred directly by himself. And what he tells about his life in Turkey is a sort of lesson, a lesson on how to unite the diversity of faiths. On Saturday, January the 5th, in 1935, Monsignor Angelo Giuseppe Roncalli, this is his full name, gets off the train at the Haydar Pasha train station in Istanbul. He was sent to Turkey as apostolic delegate for the Holy See, with which the Turkish state didn't have diplomatic relations at that time. We are talking about the period in which Europe was hit by the Second World War. It was still in progress, while Turkey excitedly was enjoying a series of modernization revolutions. Revolutions of the newly founded Republic of Atatürk. Challenging revolutions, such as giving women the right to vote before many European countries, such as restoring the Turkish language after centuries and adapting the Latin alphabet, such as the secularization of the state. Monsignor Roncalli arrived in this interesting atmosphere. At that time, the apostolic figures didn't have mentionable power. And besides, his predecessor, Margariti, didn't have good relations with anyone, neither with the Turkish authorities nor with the Catholic community, whose number was about 30,000 at that time. Roncalli rebuilt excellent relations with the Turkish authorities, with foreign diplomats, and he brought together the dispersed Catholic community. Going beyond good official relations, he became close friend of many Turkish bureaucrats, historians, and artists. He was more than an apostolic delegate. His personality was superior than his official title. So his efforts to save Jews from the Nazis was supported by the Turkish authorities, perhaps for this reason. You know, Turkey wasn't involved in the war, and despite it was obliged to keep impartiality, the Turkish state helped Monsignor Roncalli and opened the frontiers for the passage of more than 20,000 Jews through the Turkish territory. Roncalli, as well as the role of Pope, who introduced revolutions in Vatican, also in Istanbul had already put his distinctive sign with great challenges. For example, one day during the Christmas Mass in 1935, he read a part of the Bible in Turkish. He was the first archbishop that used the Turkish language in the Christian liturgy. And according to him, ignoring the mother tongue of the hosting country meant disrespect. And after this initiative, he said to have seen the Holy Book in the Turkish language on the desks of many foreign ambassadors. Monsignor Roncalli was very courageous to take peaceful but shocking steps, and he didn't care about the negative reaction of Christian conservatives, including the French ambassador, for example, who was particularly unpleased because until that episode, the Catholic rites in Turkey were conducted in the French language. Pope Roncalli studied the Turkish language as well with great interest, so he learned Turkish. And apart from being a religious figure, he was also an expert in Byzantine history and Byzantine art. And unlike many, I would say, bigots, he was very positive towards the Turkish people. He loved them, and he tried to change the Western attitude towards a nation whose ancestors conquered and changed the history of one of the cornerstones of the Roman Christian civilizations, which was Constantinople. He loved the new owners of the most desired city, and the most desired city gave him a lot. You know, admiring the historically cosmopolitan atmosphere of Istanbul, its oriental charm, and especially witnessing that historical moment of modernization and secularization of the new republic, he wrote on his diary these sentences. "There is a new world here. Thanks to my life in Istanbul, I freed myself from the narrow-mindedness of Rome." And another quote from his diary, "I spent the best 10 years of my life in Turkey." In his diary, on many pages, he often wrote the sentence, "I love the Turkish people." Yet, before coming to live in Istanbul, he was skeptical about Turkey. Previously, he was in Bulgaria for the same assignment, and comparing his diaries that he wrote in Bulgaria with his diaries that he wrote in Turkey, we notice the clear change in his opinion about Turkish people and about Turkey. Here's another interesting challenge of Pope Roncalli. He was one of the first persons that respected the new regulations with the ongoing secularization process. It was forbidden for people and for the religious staff of all religions to wear religious clothes and the religious symbols outside the buildings of worship, like churches, mosques, etc. So, living the religion sincerely, independently, by maintaining the secularity. This is the only denominator of different peoples. For a peaceful country, for a peaceful world, it is very important. And Roncalli was aware of it. Without any hesitation and with great pleasure, he dressed in civilian clothes when he went out of his buildings, and he had himself photographed in civilian clothes. At this point, I'd like to open a parenthesis. While doing research on Pope Roncalli, I found some resources that refer this fact, the prohibition of religious symbols outside the places of worship. Some resources refer this fact as an organized oppression against Christians. This is not true. This prohibition was valid for all religions, including Islam. I don't know why they distort the facts when they talk about Turkey. I don't know if because of ignorance or because of malice. Anyway, Turkish people haven't forgotten Monsignor Roncalli. In 1956, the 50th anniversary of his arrival in Istanbul, it was celebrated with a dedicated week in honor of him. Furthermore, the name of the street where he lived in Istanbul, Erçek Street in the Şişli district, is now called the Papa Roncalli Street, the Pope Roncalli Street. And the building where he lived today is the Vatican Embassy. When he became the Pope, he constructed official diplomatic relations between the Holy See and Turkey. So, this is the story of Pope John XXIII. This is the story of a saint who left his heart in Turkey.